where people think that I've got some kind of hidden political agenda when I talk about something involving the economy. I've seen it the most with angry posts about inflation, that people feel that I'm giving a slanted view of inflation. And let me tell you, when I talk about this stuff, I got no hidden agenda. My agenda is you. And so now I'm going to step into something that is so raw right now in our society, and that is the class divisions in the United States. And the Pew Charitable Trust did extensive research on what's happened going in the Wayback Machine from the post-Vietnam War era, the early 1970s, to last year. What has actually happened in terms of quality of life for Americans and disposable income for Americans? And what has actually happened in the country is, and this is why it's so confusing what you hear in the political sphere, is the number of people that are lower income in the United States as a percent of our population has stayed roughly the same over the last 50 plus years. And we're somewhere around 30% of Americans are in what would be referred to as the lower income tier. And then the number of people that are wealthy in the country has roughly doubled from where it was 50 years ago. We're now at a point that 1 in 5 Americans are wealthy. So you have the number of people that are low income as a percent of our overall population staying roughly the same over the last 50 years. The number that are wealthy doubling, which means the middle class has people's perception that being middle class has hollowed out, that it shrunk, is absolutely true. And we're at a point where only half of Americans can be identified as middle class. Number of reasons for this: the hollowing out of manufacturing in the United States. Even though we manufacture more goods than we have in forever, automation has made factories far more productive. And in towns, a lot of rural areas where the factories were and the factories closed, the jobs that were left, unless you migrated, moved somewhere else, the jobs just don't pay anywhere near what the factory jobs paid. And that's why in a lot of rural America, the younger people have fled. And a lot of rural areas in the United States have much older populations. And the people who stayed, they don't have the potential opportunities that people had 50 years ago. The other thing is that not only have the people, the number of wealthy people in the United States doubled as a percent of the population in the U.S., the share of what they get, the amount of national wealth that goes to them, is much larger than it used to be. And that's because we have become such a heavy technology economy, and the wealth has flowed so heavily to people at the higher end. So we've got people, 30% of Americans, who every day financially is a struggle to put food on the table, gas in the car, pay for the car, pay for housing, and all the inflationary pressures of the last cycle because of the COVID. The inflationary pressures have been so intense because you had 30% of Americans that were struggling to start with, And this has put so much additional pressure on them. And so a lot of people being in foul moods about the economy is not perception, it's reality in their lives. So as a society, we are far, far wealthier overall than we were 50 years ago. And most people live much better lives today than they did 50 years ago. But the splits that you perceive are true. It really is a reality that we do have significant and extreme, in certain cases, income inequality in the United States. Any society, even if the society is wealthier than it used to be, when there's enormous income inequality and disparity, you get a lot of anger and resentment. And we've got a lot of that in the United States. So I know that we had a post on Clark Stinks 2 months ago from somebody saying that we talk about a lot of elitist stuff on the podcast. So we talk about a lot of stuff. What about talking about, you know, the struggles that people face every day? And we have taken that to heart, and we've tried to incorporate content that involves the struggles people have. And it is clear from, because I've read this Pew Research report, that it is true that both things are happening at the same time. We have the largest number of people living well we've ever had in the United States. And then we've got people who are clearly having a rough time day to day. So the political conversation that you hear all this conflicting stuff going on, it's because both things are true at the same time.